Great. Thanks, Violet.
Yeah, we'll turn it over to you, Josh.
All right, thanks. So welcome, everybody, and happy holidays to all. And I hope everybody's doing well enough and glad that you could come and join us tonight. As Violet said, there's a health board meeting tomorrow. Just to reiterate, those are public meetings, and there's a point at the beginning of the meeting where public comment, not on items on the agenda, is taken. And you have something you want to say or something you want to ask, I would encourage you to attend, jump in. So really glad you all are here and excited to hear what you have to say. I was expecting health department update as well, but we don't have that. We'll have a public works update and just kind of an open session with questions and hopefully some answers. So with that, I think we're going to jump right to a public work update because health department folks aren't here. We have Shane or Eric on the phone.
Yes, I am here. This is Eric Dixon for the Community Council leaders. I am the county engineer. Shane was planning on being here, but was unexpectedly called away. So I'm going to run through a PowerPoint presentation that he put together. I had been collecting some other data, so hopefully this, it's a pretty short presentation if everyone can see that.
No, not yet. Yeah, I can't see anything.
Okay, how about now?
There it is.
Yep.
Okay, so we were notified about this meeting last month, and we're told that the community councils had some specific questions about well, particularly state revenue, gas tax revenue, things like that. What projects had been completed through BARSA funding, and what projects we had planned for the coming year. So Shane's PowerPoint is a little more broad and covers a lot of our entire department budget. So I'll run through that really quick, and then if there are any other questions, or if we have time to get more specifically into the BARSA questions or the project questions, then we can certainly have time for that. So generally speaking, though, this is the budget that we work with. This is what our final budget was for this current fiscal year. So about half of our revenue comes from property taxes. That Forest Reserve Act is if people are not familiar with it, that's what we call the Secure Rural Schools. That is money that is supposed to make up for the loss of revenue in heavily timbered counties where there were a lot of timber sales historically. So, last year the federal government reauthorized a full apportionment. So we had that $362,000, and unless that's acted on at the federal level, our base revenue is about. So we don't always count on that being a big part of our operational budget and kind of use it either as a fund for specific projects that come up or equipment purchases if that is reauthorized within our budget cycle. So not a big part of our budget and not a secure one either way, but it is a little bit from the federal level. So you'll see there that our base gas tax, I believe that's the gas tax that hasn't changed in a number of years, I believe is the 27 cents per gallon. Our revenue that we contribute to the state 2 or 3 years ago was estimated about $16 million. And so that goes to the state and we get just under $320,000 back. So certainly not a proportionate share of our revenue that we get back. So when the state legislature passed the BARSA funding, that was a graduated revenue for increased gas tax, and we just completed our 3rd year, and the revenue for that was $362,000. the first year that we got any money from that funding was about $119,000. I don't recall when the full assessment will be made, or I can't even remember what level we're at now, if we're at the 4 cent or whatever step we're in. So certainly when that is fully collected, we'll be probably closer to, I don't know, certainly over $400,000. I don't know if we'll be close to the $500,000 range, but that'll be a few more years before we can collect that full revenue. And of course that money is specifically for road maintenance projects. It can't be used for equipment or operations. It is specifically for projects on the ground.
Hey,
And of
Eric,
course, yes.
Eric, this is Josh. I just wanted to ask you a question about the state gas tax and the BARSA tax. Maybe others may have the same interest. So my understanding is we collect the money, it gets sent to the state, and then we get some of it back. But a good portion of what we collect goes to other parts of the state where there are plenty of roads but less people. Is that accurate?
Well, yeah, the more heavily populated counties definitely subsidize the other counties. Like I said, I think it was in 2017 possibly, we contributed over $16 million to the state revenue, but we got $319,000 back. So, that's about a 2% return on our revenue, whereas the BARSA gas tax, we get about 10% of that back. That is a little more fair distribution based on what what each county revenue adds to the state. So
I'm glad you have those numbers right at your fingertips. And I just wanted, because people may be wondering, well, why in the heck did these guys do a gas tax? It's really because 2% and 10% is what we get back from what we collect on money we send to the state, and our gas tax, 100% of it stays here to fix our roads, not to fix the roads in less populated parts of the state. So, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to get clarity on that. Thanks, Eric.
No, that's a great point, and leads right into what you just said about our local option fuel tax, which was fortunately passed this past June, and that is 100% local. What we collect here stays here. It does not go to the state to be distributed to another county that does not have the revenue generation that we do. So definitely great that that's 100% local, and of course is just like the BARSA gas tax, is slated specifically for projects that can't be used for salaries or for equipment or anything like that. It's specifically for projects on the ground.
Eric,
yes.
This is Dave, and just for folks who may not know what this cryptic acronym BARSA refers to, that stands for the Bridge and Road Safety Accountability Act, which took effect in 2017.
I thought it was bars and amphitheaters.
Well, that's only Bonner.
Thanks, Dave.
Right. So,
By the way, I do want to just throw in here that maybe our commissioners should be pointing out to commissioners of eastern counties that this is a form of socialism that's benefiting them.
Bert, if that happens, we may need a security detail out at 199 West Pine just so we can get to and from our vehicles and get home safely.
I'd be glad to help with that.
Thank you. I see Lee Bridges has her hand up.
I do. Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Thank you. In reference to the state gas tax and the BARSA that you're talking about, we in East Missoula have our sewer board is going to be closing out our bond in 2023. When it closes out, we're going to have leftover monies to be spent to help our community, and our projected project is to pave our alleyways out here. Can that state gas tax or BARSA money be applied? We don't have enough to cover it ourselves. We're looking at maybe having 175,000 of our own, but we need matching funds or whatever it's going to take to get this done. And being that it's in 2023, I know the time to start seeking out the funding is now, not waiting until we're standing at the end holding the bag of money. So would state gas tax and Barca apply to that? And how, if so, who would we talk to and how would we apply for that?
I don't know if Chris or Ann might have an answer offhand for whether or not that would be allowed. I'm not sure. You know, we of course, being at the county, we typically have that slated for you know, projects on existing public county maintained roads. So I don't know if they don't have an answer, we'd certainly have to check and see if that is an option.
Okay, because we are county and we do need it done. So we want to get this project started because we know how much time it takes for something to actually happen. So that's why I'm asking you today, 3 years in advance of what we can do. Actually, 2 years in advance, looking at it really.
Lee, we can definitely look into it. I just think the issue is nobody on this call has the answer for you, but we will 100% will look into it and get back to you.
Perfect. Thank you.
You bet.
All right, sorry, 1 second. I'm just writing that down so I don't forget. And we'll
Good job.
question answered, hopefully. So anyway, I guess, you know, you see what our revenues are, kind of specific for the gas tax. I guess one last thing to mention on the local option fuel tax, of course, you know, we estimated that we would be collecting $500,000 or, you know, over $1 million between the city and the county, and our share of that would be between $500,000 and $550,000 per year. This first year, we were just being a little more conservative with what the actual revenue may be. You know, we're not going to be collecting on a full year. We did get a report from the treasurer that I think since we started collecting, we have about $138,000. So that's middle of September when it was started, probably through the end of November. So it's hard to predict how well we're tracking for what a full year's revenue may be. But that's why we use the $300,000 this year rather than what was originally estimated for the entire local option revenue. So just for this first year, it's looking low. So you see there that our total revenues are just under $6 million, and you know, and that's just for the road department. So within the bridge department, you know, we still have some revenue from the state. Most of it is local from the property taxes. And so, you know, our total revenues are at $1.2 million, but we are able to use that on occasion with our TSEP funding, which is the Treasure State Endowment Program, and that's interest on the coal tax or the coal reserves. So we have been very successful the past many years for having eligible projects that we can receive a maximum grant of $500,000 per year. So this year we had 2 projects out in the Frenchtown area. Total estimate for those combined was about $1.2 million. So you know, with our $500,000 grant, you know, we got quite a bit of work done for paying just over half of the project cost. So those revenues are not included in our base budget because those are grant applications as the grant funding cycle comes around every 2 years.
Eric, could you explain what the entitlement share is?
Yes and no. I had to ask the question.
We can go for it, but I thought if you had your own take on it, you could do that. But
I had to ask our finance manager, and she explained it in an email. All I know is, generally speaking, it's a replacement revenue for funds that were lost at some level. I don't know if that's a very good explanation of it. I don't know if you have a better one, or if
So I think I've heard Dave do a really good explanation, but I'll give it a shot, and then Dave and Juan can fill in. But my understanding is that when we do work for the state, specifically collecting fees around motor vehicle registration, we collect the money, we do the work, collect the money, and send money to them, and we get a portion of that money back, basically for doing the work. But the state doles that money out. It's called entitlement, and it's a bad name for it. And it's perpetually vulnerable at the legislature as a source of money the state would like to tap into to do other things. But this is money we collect while doing work on behalf of the state and then send to them.
Good job.
Great job.
Thanks. But you guys may hear about it in the news, because this legislature will go for it, and that's a chunk of that money should rightly be ours. We do the work.
Yeah, thank you. That was a much better explanation than I had. So thank you. Yes, I was not entirely sure myself. So thank you for that, for my own benefit.
Hey, Lee, is your hand still up from earlier, or did you have a new question?
No, that must be from earlier.
Okay. Your hand is now lowered.
All right, so then with the revenue that we get, of course, we have to spend that, and you can see there what our breakdown, and this is a combined road and bridge use of the revenue. So you can see that, of course, their salaries, their operations, that that includes anything from office supplies to building rent or lease, our safety budget, equipment, obviously, is self-explanatory, and unfortunately, though, like I mentioned earlier, with that SRS funding, that's never a guarantee. We have our equipment budget that we always hope we can use, and I know Shane always says that hope is not a strategy for funding projects or equipment purchases, but unfortunately with that one, that's all we can do, is hope that the Secure Rural Schools funding comes in each year, or that we have a healthy enough budget that we can actually put a line item in for equipment purchases. Unfortunately, though, when things come down to it towards the end of the year, the equipment purchases are typically the things that are going to get cut first as a budget saving measure. So, and you'll see here in a few slides anyway that the $420,000 that we hope to spend each year is less than half of what we should be spending each year to maintain the fleet that we do have. So anyway, moving on, in the construction projects, that $520,000 does include our BARSA revenue. So right now, $362,000 of those specific construction projects are funded by BARSA. Of course, this year we had to contribute some money towards the Mullen Build project. So that $300,000 is really a unique year. Typically, that would not be an expenditure, so our budget would be in a little better place. But this year, we do have that obligation. And the materials there, those are what we use for the road maintenance. So that would include our asphalt purchases, gravel purchases, patching material, salt and de-icer, equipment rentals, anything that we need to do for the road maintenance operations itself. The traffic operations, the biggest portion of that is we spend about $85,000 per year for epoxy striping on our roads. And actually this year, that budget is a little bit lower than normal. We only budgeted $45,000 for striping this year, just to kind of plan for any potential budget shortfalls with the COVID impacts. The traffic department was one area that took a brunt of that budget savings. So really, traffic operations is pretty basic with traffic striping and sign maintenance. Of course, our shop operations are a pretty big expense with the age of our equipment. In that shop budget, the fuel repair or fuel purchases, tire purchases, and the equipment repairs themselves make up about 80% of that budget. Some of our trucks are from 1995, and we use them year round to haul gravel, haul asphalt, and then plow snow all year. And a lot of them are getting pretty tired and they get beat up. So our equipment repairs budget is higher than it maybe could be, but then we don't exactly have the ability to really draw that down in a single year and concentrate, supplementing the equipment purchase budget so that our maintenance costs are lower. So we're kind of stuck in a high maintenance cost cycle every year. So again, something you'll see in a later slide about what our equipment needs are. So between those, anyway, those expenses, we're spending just under $7 million between the road and the bridge funds.
Eric, does construction on that line mean hiring, like contracting with other entities to do stuff?
We typically don't. We could, and again, that's where the BARSA revenue is used, and the local option gas tax will be used. The local option wasn't accounted for in that budget this year, but no, those are kind of separate projects. Like, not necessarily just an asphalt overlay or like a maintenance project that we might do on a short section of road. That would be things like we did a couple years ago with the reconstruction of the north end of Dayshaw Lane, or what we did out on Beckwith Street. Those were primarily BARSA funded, but are more specific project works than just asphalt maintenance. Okay,
great, thanks.
Excuse me. So then you'll see this is what our coffers look like at the end of the fiscal year. And I don't know if that's deceiving or not for anyone that might see that we have $1.5 million in the road fund when we're saying how we don't have money to maintain roads or buy equipment. But that is our operating budget then for the first couple years or first couple months of the fiscal year, because without a budget being approved until the end of August or September, that's the cash that we have to operate on for those couple months between both the road and the bridge funds. And of course, in the middle of summer, that's when we're paving. So that's when our big asphalt bills come in, and our big bridge construction bills came in this year, which of course, of that $1.6 million, $700,000 of that is gone right now for our projects out in Frenchtown. And we already have several projects lined up for the next few years to either use for a TSEP project or build up our cash reserve to pay for those future projects directly.
This is Bert. I probably should know this, but what's the fiscal year?
We're July 1st through June 30th. So. Okay. So that makes it even worse in the middle of a construction season, trying to, finish up one fiscal year at the exact time your projects are starting.
Okay, thanks.
So then one of the questions that, of course, we were asked to more specifically prepare for this year or for this month is, what we have coming up for next construction season. And we're not ready to share that project specific list yet. We will be going over that with the commissioners on Monday. But generally speaking, these are the primary things that we want to do. Those first three bullet points there. Chip seals are one of the biggest things that we've been missing out on. Certainly recognized as a very important aspect of asphalt maintenance, but in our operations budget or our materials budget for road maintenance that I mentioned a few minutes ago, when I started here back in 2001, our asphalt budget was about $350,000, and this year our asphalt maintenance budget was $400,000. And in that time, the price of asphalt has doubled, and so we're not able to obviously maintain the same number of miles that we were in the past with just asphalt overlays, and that was our only real source of project work between asphalt overlays or chip seals. So we have been unfortunately falling behind, now for 18 or 19 years since we've done a chip seal at the county level. So we are working on adding that program back in, certainly because of the availability of the BARSA revenue, certainly because of the local option gas tax, and again our base road budget of about $400,000. So moving forward, we are working at splitting our work into the two main areas of chip seals and paving projects. Again, some of those paving projects may come in the form of a reconstruct, but it is essentially asphalt maintenance of existing roads. So that's really what we're working on this coming summer. That list will be finalized here hopefully soon, so that we can get our chip seal out for bid and have those good prices locked in early. And you'll see there that one of the pavement management system, that's something that we completed an analysis of just about a year ago. We jointly with the city had a consultant come in and rate and inspect and drive every one of our asphalt roads in both the city and the county. And from their report, they suggest, you can see there, that we should be spending about $3 million annually on pavement preservation, and for the past 20 years we've been spending $400,000. So obviously a little gap in our funding and in what we can do. So using those new revenue sources moving forward, we're going to try to gain some ground back. We're going to be a little more creative with what we do and where we do it, but it's definitely an uphill battle. And likewise, I mentioned that we have a lot of old equipment, and we internally, this was our own assessment of our fleet, is that we should be spending about $1 million per year to maintain the fleet that we have. And you may recall earlier that we had a little over $400,000 planned this year, and again is something that is typically the first thing to come off the list when there's a budget shortfall and we have other needs. So that equipment purchase option is definitely few and far between. We have been introduced to a new source of equipment from Adrian Beck at Office of Emergency Management. The Department of Defense offers their equipment through the DNRC for surplus to local agencies. So, excuse me, just in the past few months, we picked up a pretty good loader, an excavator, a very good dozer, and another semi-truck that we can use to transport equipment. And if we pick up another material trailer, we'll have more efficient ways to haul gravel as well. So another source of our trying to be creative, getting some used equipment, except for our only cost is the cost of transport and any repairs that may be necessary to put it in service. So an interesting source of equipment these days, and certainly going to be combined with our ongoing efforts to continue looking for new equipment through purchases or leases. So that's the end of this presentation.
Thanks, Eric.
So I don't know if we want to or need to get into any more specifics. I know that the questions were out there for what Barca has been spent on in the past. I can certainly try to answer those questions if that is of interest, or if there are any other questions in general.
Looks like Tom and Emily have their hands up.
Okay, just real quickly, Eric, the resurfacing from Summit up to the Lake County line, that was a county project, right?
No, that was an MDT project. We were the recipient of the millings that they took off of that highway project, and we used those millings to provide hard surfacing on previously gravel roads. Holland Lake Road was the first one. Then we did a couple roads in the Sealy area out by the airport, and then we ended up using some down on Placid Lake Road as well.
Oh, that's good. That's actually what my question was about. And this is partly because I'm president of a big HOA up here, and we're looking at doing some resurfacing next year. But someone told me that when you did the Holland Lake Road with those millings, you then chip sealed on top of it. For the Placid Lake, that piece coming out on 83, you did not. And the chip sealings, this I've heard, made a big difference in how that's wearing. Do you know anything about that?
I do. Actually, we had planned for all those millings that we were going to place. So we had planned on Holland Lake Road, which of course we did. Those two roads in Sealy, which we did. And then we had a little problem with our contractor availability for hauling the material on Placid. So we ended up doing things a little differently down there. But what we planned on doing and what we did on both Holland and in Sealy is we added an asphalt rejuvenator. And so it's a product, an asphalt emulsion product, to help rebind the asphalt material. So we did not get the chip seal done on Holland or in Sealy yet, but that is going to be done next year. It was just the fact that we ran out of time and could not, coordinate our work for Placid to get the asphalt emulsion added down there. So it's interesting to hear. I haven't been up there for a couple months, so it's interesting to hear from you locally that you can see the difference in how well that product helps the other two roads.
Yeah, it's been really good. And as I say, on our Double Arrow Ranch up here, we've got a few miles to do probably next year. And we'd like to copy what you did on the Holland Lake Road because it kind of matches the sort of traffic we get on the ranch. Great, thanks a lot.
Sure.
Okay, my question was actually on your Barstow funding, just so as a historical perspective on understanding what that's about. How did that come about? It sounds like it's, by the what you're talking about, it's very temporary, and what that looks like in kind of just general terms. And why is it different than what is already out there?
I can say, I guess the Barca itself is not temporary. That is a permanent gas tax that will be collected. They're just, it's an incremental step until the full assessment will be made and collected. I don't know if any of the commissioners or Chris or Ann have the history about how the state legislature was willing and able to make that happen. I just know that there was, generally speaking, recognition of the budget shortfalls. So I don't know how the state took that problem on and made it work, but they did.
Or were you talking about the secure rural schools, Emily, or Barca?
Oh no, he answered the question. I was curious on it. It sounded like it was kind of more of a temporary. So I was kind of just uniquely like, it felt like he was kind of inclining that it was changing, or it would, so I was kind of curious. That was why. So now I understand a little better where that comes from and what that does, just from a curiosity standpoint.
Eric, could you stop sharing?
Oh, I thought I did. Oh, yep, there we go. Okay.
Thanks.
And the Barca gas taxes, I think a creature of legislative compromise, in that there are those of us who think that it might have been a more elegant solution simply to raise the existing gas tax. That did not happen, and Barca unfortunately requires an additional set of administrative hoops for counties to apply for that, and also I believe MDT gets a cut of that action, which diminishes what we end up getting back here locally. But it is what it is, and it is perpetual until the legislature decides to take it away.
Yep. And that assessment Eric was referring to, I imagine, is we get a portion of the total collection. So when the numbers are in for how much is collected, we know what we get back. We have any other questions for Eric?
Eric, this is Dave. One of the questions that I think came up at the last time was just in terms of prioritization of what roads get either maintained or what's the possibility for paving additional roads. And I think your presentation made clear that we're arguably not even able to keep up with the maintenance of our existing paved roads with the funding that we have. But could you just give a high level recap of roughly number of paved versus gravel roads that are under county maintenance, and what our process is for prioritizing maintenance on those roads?
Sure. So in the county, we have about 232 miles of paved roads and 242 miles of gravel roads. So again, going back to what our maintenance budget has been. So, back in 2005, we were able to maintain primarily through overlays about 10 miles per year. Of course, with a stagnant budget and increasing asphalt prices, we're about 4.5 miles of asphalt road that we can maintain per year now. Historically, it was an internal decision based on the internal knowledge of our staff, primarily the road supervisors who are out on the roads every day, who get the calls with the complaints about the needs for maintenance. So our historic maintenance was based on, again, just local knowledge. With the completion of the asphalt maintenance or the asphalt condition assessment, they provide a report, and in that report they recommend what levels of maintenance are necessary for each road. So our goal moving forward would be that we can use that asphalt condition rating and their predicted deterioration models, and use that as a fair and equal assessment, because otherwise it's the personal nature of the problems. If we get dozens and dozens of complaints about one road or an area with bad roads, of course that's always going to rise to the top of our list for needing maintenance, whereas there could be roads in similar conditions in other parts of the counties, but we go where the complaints are. And so we'd like to move away from that, and because that's sometimes or oftentimes a difficult decision to justify. If you have two people that call in and complain, and you say, well, you were the second complaint that we got, so we had to go with number one, or the other complaint was they really need it, and you just said you need it. So it's been unfortunately not a very consistent, and I guess I shouldn't say fair or equal, but we've never had that snapshot of the condition of our asphalt on a countywide basis. It's always just been, what's fresh in your mind based on what road you drove that day or what complaints we received. So, that historic maintenance has been kind of as a response to what needs to be done versus using a predictive model moving forward that we can maybe not necessarily, and I hate to say waste time. If you spend money with an asphalt overlay on a road, it's obviously going to improve it. But is that the best investment that you can make with that same amount of asphalt over a 5 or 10 or a 15-year period? So moving forward, we'll be trying to make that transition from a reactive maintenance program to a more proactive program.
Thanks, Eric.
Hey,
Eric, this is Shane. I've been listening.
Hey, Shane.
You're doing a fabulous job. I don't know if you want to touch on too we've got FLAP coming up, and then we just got a call potentially for projects for TA, and I think some of the local dollars that we're generating, let's say through the gas tax, we can help to leverage the use of those dollars, so that we get even more locally from those either state or federal programs.
Shane, could you define, just so not everyone may know, what either FLAP or
TA
mean?
Yeah. Sorry. Federal Lands Access Program, and that's a federal program through Western Federal Lands, and $17 million that the state can dole out to counties and cities that those roads have to basically provide access to some sort of federal land, whether that's Forest Service or BLM or even Army property or military property. So we are, if we apply for those funds, there's a match required. It's 13.42%, and as long as we are able to cover that 13.42%, they're fine providing the federal dollars to support those projects. But it's competitive too, and so we've got a long list of projects that we'd like to potentially apply for FLAP, and that's coming up. And then transportation alternative dollars, federal aid that comes through the state, kind of replace the old CTEP program where the cities and counties used to get funding. That's a community transportation enhancement program. So that's what would be used to fund trails, or sidewalks. And so now it's TA, and there's still a match requirement, but and that's kind of that same 13.42% match. But I can tell you, just passing the gas tax, it gives us the ability to match where I don't think we could have matched before, or if we were going to match, there would have been essentially, the requirement that, we're not going to buy equipment, or we're not going to be able to do pavement preservation or any kind of construction, where just with the gas tax alone, we can kind of maintain what we were doing before, plus maybe match something. But, like Eric mentioned, we're spending $400,000 on our pavements right now. We need to be spending, I think if we were spending $1.5 million to $2 million, we'd be doing really well. But the 500,000 gets us close. It doesn't completely bridge the gap, but it slows that deterioration. And I think we're going to try to figure out other ways to find funding, just to maintain the system that we have. Hopefully that helps.
Great.
You left them all
Thanks.
speechless.
Yeah. Thanks for coming back.
Yeah, well, I actually got on just as Eric was starting on slide 1, and I figured I'd let him roll, and he did an awesome job. I didn't want to stop him.
He did great.
Well, I'll just put a shout out to our public works staff. We talked a little bit before you got on the line, Shane, about some of the use of millings on projects up in the Swan and in the Sealy area, but also we put millings down out in the 9 Mile along Remount Road this year, and so a shout out to our public works staff for thinking creatively about how to use what otherwise might be a waste product from Montana Department of Transportation projects to get some much needed maintenance work done and essentially pave some roads at a much reduced cost from what it would be otherwise.
Yeah, definitely. There's a couple benefits, Dave. It's recycling, which, a material that might just be wasted. And then, take advantage of those materials when they're available to provide those surfacing projects at like you say, at a much reduced cost. And, we're in contact with MDT, and we are fully aware of the future projects that they have in the county. And we've made it clear that we'll take as many of the millings as we can. So I think that's a program we'll continue to do until, it proves to be, I guess, not as good of a process as we think it is right now. So.
Great, thanks. All right, any other questions for Shane or Eric? And then I think we're at the portion of this meeting where Kyla can walk us through all the attendees and anybody can ask anything. Or Violet can. I'm sorry if I said Kyla.
Oh, no worries. No worries at all. Yeah, I'll just go through. I feel like I'll go by council. We have 4 councils representing today. And then if you guys have any questions or and if you'd like to give an update, that would be awesome. We will start with Bonner, from which we have both Bert and Emily representing.
Let me start by asking who's the 4th. I know that East Missoula and Bonner and Sealy are on. Who's the 4th?
I think Tom Tucker said he was from West Valley. Did I get that right?
Yes, she did.
Okay, I missed that, Tom. I'm sorry. First, I want to say thanks for the other council members being here, or the other councils being representative, and I kind of miss Lolo because they usually bring some good questions to the meetings.
Yeah.
The other thing, and it's a very quick one, is for the commissioners. I have a meeting tomorrow with the owner of the old Harris Thermal property. So that's moving on to our parking problem. Looks like we might get, at least I've got his attention, and we're gonna actually walk the property tomorrow. So thanks for
Bert. That's
great
really,
to hear, Bert.
Really, that's super great. From what our lawyers got back to us, the first and best solution is just to work with the property owner before we bring in any heavy hand.
Well, before we say it's super great, let's see how the conversation goes.
Well, it's super great that he's even open. So
yeah,
you can tell him the heavy hand is looming.
That's all I had. Thanks.
Thanks, Bert.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to what Bert said in Bonner. So thanks for this. This is always good, a lot of good information, and I really appreciate this time that you guys spend with us. And thank
I will throw one other thing in. We got word in our meeting Monday night from Steve Nelson that we think the repository in the Bonner Mill will be moved by the end of March.
Oh, fantastic.
Bert, do you know what that excavation is they're doing out there right now?
Yeah, that's the fire department, the new fire department building that's going in. The fire department bought the property just inside the fence from the chipping operation. And if you look at it, I know you've been by there, but if you look at it, they moved the gates They now have power gates in and out just beyond the shack for where the scales are. And that allows the fire department to have unlimited access in and out without a gate in the way. That building, I think, is scheduled to be finished in 9 months from now. And they plan at that point in time to sell the other building, but right now they need to keep it. The new building is going to be double as far as the number of volunteer fire people that can spend the night there, stay with them, work with them. It also puts them in a much better, I think, a much better place for serving both West Riverside, Bonner, Milltown, down Rustic Road, and all of that area.
Thanks.
Sure.
Thanks, Bert. Thanks, Emily. Let's go on to East Missoula if we still have Lee on the line.
Hi there. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I would like to give an update on the pet clinic that we had last month. We held that at the Red Barn in West Riverside. Thank you, Bonner, by the way, for letting us use that barn. The pet clinic that we put on was extremely successful. It was outstanding and the best ever. So we hope to be doing that every couple of months or every month or so as we can. I know I've got some pets I need to take in. So anyway, that was an extreme success. Also, we ended up canceling our virtual December meeting for the East Missoula Community Council because we just didn't have enough topics to be brought up at the time. Hopefully in January that'll change. And we did have one issue last month that was not resolved satisfactorily. I know the commissioners know about it. I talked to the county attorney, and unfortunately we've got some vandalism that was done with some graffiti, and there's really nothing we can do about it, which is sad. So that's all I've got to add. I hope everybody stays safe for the holiday season. Thank you.
Thanks, Lee.
Thanks.
Thanks, Lee. Next up, we'll go to Sealy Lake. We have Doug and Tom, I believe.
Nothing from me, no questions really, but it's a great meeting and some good information. Thanks.
Hey, Doug, good to see you. A couple things. This is Tom here. One of the items that the council has been looking into and been a champion for is to have the radar speed limit signs like you have in Bonner. And we basically have approval from the commissioners. I think maybe Dave, you might have been on that meeting. So it's a good thing to do, especially in the summertime, because there's so many pedestrians that walk along the trail, and we definitely think it's worth a try. Of course, the stumbling block was who's going to pay for it. So DOT says, yeah, it's a cool idea, but we got no money. So we have our Sealy Lake Community Foundation has a grant program for things that improve local quality of life. So we do have a grant. One of our fellow members, Bruce Freedy, wrote it up, and we submitted that. So we'll see where that goes. Basically, the cost to do a pair of signs, because we need one at each end of town, has come from the $10,000 or so we were thinking about, say, a year ago when we first, when the subject came up. It's now down more like $2,500. So I think we're feeling that with the council's kind of support and pushing it, we can get the funding, and then DOT has agreed to maintain it and do everything else. So that's what we have going on. The other, and by the way, if any of you come up to Sealy, the town is wonderfully lit up because there was a 3-part program back in October, November called Reimagining Rural America. It was sponsored by MSU Bozeman, and there were probably 25 small communities around the state. I think Malta was there, and Havre and Ekalaka. And the First Interstate Bank put some money on the table for grants for those communities that actually participated in all 3 sessions, which we did up in Sealy. So we got a couple $1,000. Part of it we used for the lights that you see through town now. So it's quite a spectacular drive to come 83 from the barn, where it really starts, up to the north end of town. The other piece of the grant, which we left a bit unspecified, but is for what we call our Winterfest festival. It's been kind of late January. There's not really clear ownership now. But one of the things I would have asked Cindy, had she been on tonight, and maybe if any of whoever might be at the health department meeting, we know that COVID is anything indoors really won't work, but we got a lot of space up here. So we're looking at things like snowshoe historical walks around the lake and maybe bonfires outside. But I think it would help the community if the health department specifically looked at wintertime outdoor events that would work under the various restrictions we have now. People are excited. I mean, there was really a lot of enthusiasm about lighting up the building. So we figure, late January, early February, a Winterfest would be a good thing for people's morale and everything else. But the more specific the health department can be about saying, an outside gathering, if we're in a 30-acre field, how many people could we have, that sort of thing. We'd like to know about that. So that's it.
Awesome. Thanks, Doug. Thanks, Tom. What a great update. So good to hear that Sealy looks so beautiful. Last up on my list is Tom from West Valley.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. When's the last time that you folks have sent out the county subdivision information when people are starting to build out here in the West Valley area through Frenchtown? I see a lot of buildings going up, but I don't see anybody coming from the county to tell us that they're building on a subdivision or they're building new houses in a subdivision. Used to get them there a year ago. Any information on that?
Chad, are you on the line?
Hey, Josh, I am. It would depend. I'm trying to think of what we've had come through recently. I can't think of any subdivisions out in that neck of the woods. But then again, I'm not as close to it as some of our planners. If you wanted to circle back and with an email or give me a call, we can maybe track down what you're seeing, and then we can try to get the right answers for you.
What's your email?
I will post it in the chat for you. That's probably the best way to get a hold of us, or if you've got contact information for the CAPS office, that's another good way to just make sure you end up landing in the right place. So I'll throw the phone number and I'll throw my email address in the chat.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Do you feel good? Do you know how to access the chat? Do you feel good about that?
Say again?
Can you get to the chat? Is that something you feel comfortable with?
Well, I haven't been able to get on, the last time we had the session and I was on, I could listen and view, but for some reason, Microsoft Teams wouldn't load, so I don't know what's going on.
You know what?
So I can call somebody there at CAPS and.
Yeah.
Well, hang on. I think Chet's got an idea for you.
Do you have, are you able to write down a quick phone number?
Go for it.
Okay, try 240-2005, and that's my phone number, my cell phone. And feel free to give me a call on that, and then I'll probably end up pointing you in the right direction based on what some of your specific questions are.
Okay. Because Alexander's right there between where you get off the freeway onto the you know, here in Frenchtown, they had a bunch of work done in there, put in roads and power and that little subdivision. So that was one of them that was cited from about a year and a half ago. So that one's in, but they still haven't sold any property in there. A new house went in there next to the high school, just to the west, between that and Roman Creek Road. There was no information about that subdivision there, building houses. There's one going out on Brittany Lane that's a new house going up. You know, they're just popping up houses all over. Looks like maybe Alexander's got a gravel pit going on up to the north side of his property. You know, just all kinds of little things like that are just popping up all over. But we used to get information on that here, you know, at least 2 years ago. So, and I have one more question. I had a bunch of folks ask me that on the COVID, they say so much on the news about people being tested and people dying. But when you look in the paper, you don't know if these people are dying from COVID or if they're dying from old age or other problems like colds or flu or whatever. So I've had a couple, 2, 3 people ask me, how do we know if these people that are dying of old age are not blaming it on COVID? You know, they're all my age in their 70s and 80s, and they don't say. And I understand it's personal when they put the obituary in the paper. They usually won't tell anything about that other than they passed on with an age. But how do we know these people are passing from COVID or if they're passing from, you know, old age? There's no clarification on the news.
I think the short answer to that is you won't know unless the person or the family of the deceased, I guess it wouldn't be the person because they are deceased, but the family let on that this person did die from COVID-related complications. I think it's too bad Cindy from the health department isn't on, but we do release. The health department does release numbers as far as COVID-related deaths, but I don't think there's any easy way to correlate those to the death notices or obituaries in the newspaper.
I mean,
I just want to toss out one thing here. I mean, there's an underlying sense that there's a lie being told, or that if COVID deaths are repeated, that it's not accurate or something. And my sense is that's just not true. There's absolutely nothing to be gained by the health department or the state saying someone died of COVID when they actually didn't. I feel like this is us
misinformation,
not taking things as seriously as we need to.
Well, we need to take it serious.
I would caution against that.
When you see this many people died, is it from COVID or is it because their time was up?
If the state says many people died of COVID, I would take that seriously.
Yeah, this is Bert. I think most of the time you see it in the newspaper, it is a list of COVID deaths today, COVID deaths in this month. And those are deaths that are coded by the medical profession at time of death as either COVID related or not. And so when you see in the newspaper that these are 679 COVID deaths today, those are not old age related. They might be old people, but they are dying. They're dying from COVID related issues.
And the news does say that these are not accurate reports because, you know, the 10 o'clock news doesn't know what happens between the 7 a.m.
Right.
Yep. Okay, well, I'll just pass that on to the 3 or 4 people that asked me those questions.
And I think also
so that's all I have.
Using MissoulaInfo.com would help as well for those specific health department updates.
Give me that address again.
It's missoulainfo.com. Is that correct, Josh?
Yep.
Or Violet? Yeah, thank you. Okay.
I only said yes because I could see Violet.
I'll check it out.
Sweet.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Sweet. Thanks for those questions, Tom. Does anyone else have any questions or extra updates they thought of?
I think Emily does.
I did. Actually, I wanted to circle back to Tom on his health department question. Hey, I happen to sit on a board for a women's hockey league. So we came under scrutiny because of the restrictions that happened with the health department with their lowering to 25 guests. So reaching out, so we had to have clarification on what we could and couldn't do. So we actually submitted, along with Glacier Ice Rink, a plan of what we were doing, how we were mitigating, what the teams, what close contacts for their approval for our weekly events, essentially. So definitely just reach out, Tom, just reach out to the health department and say what you're doing and what you'd like to do. And they'll give you some really good guidance and say, you know, yeah, that can fall within, or, you know, these are some steps you should take to protect you in the community in the process. So there you go. My 2 cents.
That's good. Yeah, thanks, Emily. In fact, could you email me what you did for them? I mean, just as a kind of template to use. Like, did you?
Yeah, I can look what we essentially emailed. I had to look back on our board notes, but I can totally do that for you. So yeah, I'll try to get that together this week.
Not that I'm going to plagiarize it or anything, but it'd be nice to give me some guidance.
Yeah.
And Emily, if you don't have Tom's address, email address, I do.
I don't, so I'll get it from you. That'll be easy. Sorry.
Tom, if you were to plagiarize, that would mean you'd have a bunch of women playing hockey up in Sealy, which could be a good thing.
Well, that would be. That's right.
We like playing up in Sealy and hockey.
Yeah, good ice up there.
I have a comment I want to make. This is Tom from West Valley. My wife was talking to a lady friend of hers from Superior. And I guess her husband went into the old Pike's grocery store there to get some fried chicken Saturday. Sunday they were called and said that 3 of the people back in the deli had the COVID. So I thought that was kind of interesting that they would let them know. So they were told to stay home for 15 days or 14 days to make sure they didn't get it.
Good.
They were masked up, but, you know, this stuff's running around. And I see a few people running around with no masks on at all. And I challenge them, and they just tell me to take a hike, so.
I don't think I'll be buying any roasted chicken tonight.
Not at Pike.
Okay.
Are you close to the bottom of the list, Violet?
I am at the end of the list. So if anyone else has any last minute questions or updates, go ahead, Bert.
Before we leave, I'm kind of disappointed in our commissioners that nobody acknowledged the fact that we've got Senator O'Brien sitting here with us and joined us. Thanks for joining, Shannon.
Thank
Great to
you,
see you,
Bert,
Shannon.
and thanks, commissioners, and thanks all of you for all your work. This is you know, the learning curve is steep, and this is a good way to learn. Thanks, y'all.
Good to have you here.
Sweet. Thank you
So
so
we're
much.
done.
I think everybody, thanks so much for coming and for being here and taking time out of your Wednesday evening to join us. I believe the next meeting, shoot, I should have written it down. It's in January, and I'll be sending out email correspondence as we get closer with the team's info and all that. So we'll see you guys in January.
Thanks for doing such a good job of coordinating this, Violet. Really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Stay safe.
Happy holidays.
Bye-bye.
Bye.